Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, What If Issei Got Married with All at Once Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Nefarious doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Rias was doing paperwork while she was thinking of how lucky Kekos is and how she gets to cling to her beloved Isseis. No one was in the room right now, so it let her vent a bit of her frustrations. That cat is always close to my Isseis and always clings to him like he's a blanket. Why was she even interested in him? She didn't like him before and all she did was call Isseis out on being and punch him. But still he was the only one who managed to help her with her fear of her power. Sometimes I wish I could see what it's like to be Kekos. How it feels to be on Isseis' lap. Feel his warmth. Be a cute devil cat. She sighed before returning to her work. What she didn't notice was that a mirror was on the shelf next to her and her reflection looked like her for a moment until the reflection had done a cat-like pose. Then why? The first target wished to see from Nico's point of view. Let's see what she thinks. Target 2. Kekos Taoju. The Nico Rook was in her lover's room, on his bed, and had a pair of his shorts on her head as she rolled in the sheets to smell her lover's scent. She wanted to be with him so badly. But unfortunately, she was cursed with a stupid lowly body that the only enjoyment she could get out of it was sitting on Issei senpai's lap and their healing sessions, which were nice, but she wanted to be a more mature and beautiful woman so she could be even closer to her senpai. She knew he liked large chests and he still loved Kekos, but the little cat wanted to know what it would be like if she had a more mature chest. Then she remembered that her master and senpai Rias had a much more amazing body than she did. Her long red hair, her blue-green eyes, her heavenly body that Isseis enjoyed admiring, and it made her green with envy, seeing the love and admiration in her senpai's eyes. I wish I was like Rias senpai. Strong, mature, beautiful, and much more. That way Isseis can treat me like a real woman and not as some little kid anymore. I'm already 16 and yet I still look like some little kid. The same mirror was there having Kekos' reflection in it before the reflection showed Rias' grimoire and the two glowed blue before the mirror disappeared. Target 3, 4, 5, and 6. Akeno Himejima, Irina Shido, Zenobia Korda, and Tsubaki Shinra. The four girls were in the shopping district buying some new swimsuits for their summer trip to the beach. They wanted to enjoy summer since most of them were tired from the many battles from Chaos Brigade and they all wanted to enjoy their break before they had to return to school. They were going to do some training and their summer homework, but they mostly wanted to relax in the warm sun and the cool breeze of the ocean. Actually act like normal teenagers instead of soldiers preparing for the next battle that will take place. Kendo and Irina were having mixed feelings since Kendo was both a fallen and a devil. Her seductive skills were on par with her king, but she had a breaking point that she wanted to be close with Isseis as a woman. However, she wanted to know what it would be like being a different person. She's always been like a big sister to him at first, but she wanted to see what it would be like having a more special relationship with him like Irina did with the young dragon. Irina was the same since she wanted to be able to become one with Isseis in body and spirit, but the only problem was her angel wings. If she were to think impure thoughts then she would become a fallen, and she didn't want to become one. She envied most of the girls in the club since they were able to express themselves freely and with no repercussions. Irina looked at Akeno and wanted to be her for just a week so she can release all of the pent-up emotions she kept bottled up and maybe, just maybe she can become one with her childhood friend who she loved ever since they became friends. Zenobia wasn't one who understood most social conversations. She wasn't a big fan of being social with others, but that changed when she met Isseis in Asia. When she joined the Grimoire peerage, she wanted to have Isseis' baby so they could have strong offspring, and she was even prepared with the condoms and attire she picked out of their night of procreation. However, Isseis wanted to establish a real relationship with her first before they ever did that, but she always felt like she was distant from the others since she couldn't do the things that they can do. She couldn't cook, clean, heal him when he was injured, or really anything to comfort him. All she was good at was swinging her sword and destroying all in her path. She remembered how girls from the church called her a gorilla or an Amazon who would end up alone and never find real love. She was hurt by that and wanted to show that she could be like the girls, but she wasn't good at telling people how she felt or being cute. That was what the girls were good at, but then there's always Gasper. The little damper made her jealous since the vampire was a boy, and yet he was able to act cute and shy with that childlike cuteness that the girls at their school were always happy about. She remembered when they were trying to toughen him up, he cried and hid away in his box. It took Issei to coax him out, and he was able to establish a connection with him and help him with his confidence issue. She saw that the little vampire also have feelings for Issei, but there was one problem with the vampire's plan of being with her lover. The vampire was a boy, but she still wanted to know why the young bishop put Issei on such a high pedestal and why he wanted to be with him, even though that it was impossible for that to happen. Sometimes I wish I knew why Gasper likes my future master and king so much. I wish I could become Gasper just for a little while. She kept browsing through the swimsuits until she looked at the mirror, but what shocked her was that her reflection was similar to Gasper, not her own. She shook her head and her reflection was normal. She released a sigh of relief and returned to her search. Tsubaki Shinra was a proud woman and often called the Stoic Queen of the student council, which was ironic considering her position in her master's peerage. She was never interested in dating until she was defeated by Yudo Kiba in their match, and her heart was taken by his strength and power, but the only problem was that it seemed that her crush didn't have any feelings for her and was very happy to be by the Red Dragon's side. She held a small hint of respect to this day for the dragon pawn, but she couldn't wrap her head around why her crush acts like he's interested in being with Issei. Then again, he was the only real guy friend that he had. The queen wanted to see what Kiba saw in his so-called friend. I wish I was Kiba so I can understand why he wants to be so close to him. Truth be told, she also developed feelings for the dragon, but kept them locked away because she couldn't understand why girls liked him so much. Tsubaki didn't notice that as she made her wish, her reflection became more manly and looked similar to Kiba. Target 7, 8, 9, and 10. Aika Kiryu, Murayama, Kadis, and Kuroka. The Kendo duo were with the two most ed women in their school. Kuroka, Kaneko's older sister, and Aika Kiryu, the most ed girl in their class. The two Kendo girls were meeting with them since they knew of the supernatural, since Aika and Issei had told them about it, which made them interested. The two of them had a crush on Issei, but it was different since Murayama always had a crush on him since they met in middle school, and she didn't mind it when Issei peeked at her when she changed. In fact, she liked it when Issei only looked at her since it made her feel special, but when they entered Kuo Academy, Issei got worse when he was hanging out with Mitsuda and Motohama. The two abused Issei's kindness and left him most of the time. She looked at Kuroka and was jealous of the beautiful and seductive cat girl in front of her. The brown-haired Kendo user was unsure if she even stood a chance at being with Issei, since many of the girls in his harem were already more beautiful and had a better personality than she did. Whenever she saw Issei with Asia, Irina, Zenobia, Rias, heck even Kiba and Gasper, she was jealous of them. She wanted to confess to Issei and show him how much she loved him. Addis always had deep-ed fantasies about her secret crush on the brown-haired idiot. She always liked his kindness and thought that if he didn't always hang out with those two idiots, M and M, then Issei, her, and Murayama would be in bed. With their clothes gone and Issei pinning them to the bed. She quickly stopped herself before she went too deep in her fantasy. Aika and Kuroka were inwardly laughing at the two, since they were willing to help the two girls confess their love to Issei, but they needed confidence in themselves, and they were willing to help them. Aika explained that they just need to try and find a way to confess to Issei without blushing like a schoolgirl. Kadis and Murayama said that it was easy for them since they were open with their feelings, but they had a reputation to uphold at their club that they couldn't be as open as they could be. Sometimes I wish I was like you, Kiryu Kuroka. The cat and her partner consoled their students and didn't notice that their reflections glowed as their reflections swapped places. With Murayama being in Kuorka's spot and Kadis in Aika's spot, and vice versa. Targets 11, 12, 13, and 14. Yudo Kiba, Gasper Vladi, Ravel Phoenix, and Asia Argento. Kiba and Gasper were working on their summer homework, so they didn't have to worry about it once they got to the beach. They were both excited to enjoy some fun and relax for a while, also with their secret plan in mind. They asked Azazel if they could borrow the gender change ray gun for the trip, since they wanted to surprise Issei in the swimsuits they chose for the trip. Azazel agreed and told them a warning that if they ever did the deed in the female form, then they would be stuck in that form, but it also helped if they revealed their true feelings. Kiba and Gasper were both jealous of the relationship between Issei and the girls and wanted to be close to him as well, but because they were both guys, Issei wouldn't be interested in dating them. They knew that Issei would let them down gently should they confess their true feelings in their male forms, so they wanted to confess in their female personas. Kiba at first saw Issei as the only male friend he had since many others were jealous of him and his popularity with the girls, which annoyed and drained him of strength. Luckily, Issei was there to help him get out of those situations. Gasper was happy to be with Issei since he was the only one who reached out and helped him out of his box of confinement. At first when they met he might as well have been a frightened girl. Afraid of his own shadow, Issei was determined to help him, despite his extreme cowardice. Issei often reprimanded him for being a shut-in and helped him open up to others and see the outside world. Gasper always seemed to feel at ease the most when he was in Issei's presence. There was something about him that made him feel relaxed and warm when he was there by his side. He still remembered the taste of Isseis' blood that he gave to him, which gave him a boost in power and even allowed him to have more control over his sacred gear for a short time. But when he heard that Issei died when saving Office, his world was shattered and his shield and warmth were gone and taken away from him. Unlike the other members in the Gremory team, he became very enraged and defeated George with his new raw power to show that he would become stronger for Issei, and when the dragon returned to him, Gasper felt a new feeling enter his heart. It was joy and love. He wanted to be closer to Issei and do the things that the girls got to do with him, such as sit on his lap, go on dates with him, and even sleep with him in his bed. Gasper knew he already had a feminine figure, but it was his nether regions that put a big wall in his plan. That's why he wanted to team up with Kiba and use the gender ray gun, but he knew the effects would only be temporary. Sometimes he wished he was like Zenobia. The knight was strong, confident, and was there at Issei's side fighting with him. He wanted to know what it would be like to fight at his side and help him. The two didn't notice that as they inwardly wished to be like the girls they had in mind. Their reflections changed to that of the female they were thinking of before it turned back to normal. Asia and Ravel were wanting to become stronger, and as they did their homework as well, they took brief glances at each other and envied the other since they both thought the other was better than them. Asia always envied Ravel since she was such a strong and independent girl who made an excellent team manager when it came to his show, training, healing, and his time with the girls. She saw the love between the two of them, and she wished she could be as confident and independent as Ravel was, so she would be of more use to Issei, since all she was good for is crying, healing, and hurting Issei by being too weak. Ravel was actually jealous of the bishop since she was spoiled by Issei and treated like a princess, which was different from her point of view since she was molded to be a princess from birth, and seeing the kindness and warmth from the nun made her jealous that she couldn't be as open as the nun was. Sometimes I wish I was independent and strong like you, Ravel, so I can be of more help to Issei. I wish I could give off that warmth and kindness that you have in Asia. The two didn't notice that their eyes widened as they thought they saw themselves until their vision returned to normal. They then decided to take a little break from their textbooks and went to get some water. Targets 15 and 16. Roswis and Sona Citri. Issei was with Roswis since he was having some trouble with his homework and asked her for help, which she was more than happy to give. Roswis was proud of how far he came along with his studies since he was the sharpest tool in the shed, but he did show that he could become better, and so after tutoring him and giving him advice on how to study better, he was getting A's and B's instead of C's and the occasional D. She did harbor deep feelings for him, but the issue was that he was her student and she was his teacher. A relationship between them would be difficult, even though she wanted to be in his peerage once he became a high-class devil. She smiled to herself as she remembered the happy times that they had together and all of the memories they made since joining the Gremory family. Issei was the only one who helped her when she was feeling doubt in her skills as a teacher and didn't make fun of her, unlike a certain red-haired king and a half-fallen. She wanted to be a young girl like the Citriaris, so she could maybe have a real relationship with him instead of the teacher and student that would surely get her fired. Little did she know that the same Citriaris wished she could be closer to Issei, and the only problem was that as student council president, her position would be jeopardized if others spread rumors that she and Issei were in a relationship. She wanted to be like the Valkyrie so she could still be close to Issei and learn more about him. The windows in the classroom revealed Roswis's and Sona's reflection until they swapped places and returned to normal. Later at the Haidu mansion, Issei was in a special room that he made sure he kept hidden away from the others since he was working on something special for Rias and the girls. He wanted to confess his feelings towards them and propose to them that he wanted to marry them in the future, so he took a special class that taught one how to make rings, bracelets, and necklaces. Issei hurt his fingers many times when he worked on it, and his teacher was very knowledgeable, which helped him when he had a question or stuck on something that he was making. The man was happy to see an excited young lad take an interest in his class. He also knew why he was making these, which made the man want to help him even more. Also, Issei was the only one even remotely interested in the elective. Issei polished the ring before holding up to the light and smiled at his handiwork. Finally, after a grueling 3 months of training until I passed out from exhaustion, making sure my grades were good and making sure no one knew of my secret elective, I'm finally done with the rings. He looked at the one in his hand and smiled as he looked at the red gem that was glowing in the light. He wanted to give this to Rias, and it was actually Issei who even suggested the vacation to the beach in the first place. There were many places where he wanted to take the girls out on dates, and also there was a special festival and an amusement park that would be there for the summer which would make them happy. Issei sent Azazel, Surziches, Ajuka, and Serafo for helping him plan the trip and the proposals he wanted to do there. They texted him back wishing him luck, and speaking of Azazel, the fallen governor was speaking to them and held the mirror. Shall I begin? They'll be gone for about 2 weeks, which gives him more than enough time to propose to the girls and even gain more members of his harem. Also, I made sure that Saji and the other members of the Citri peerage were going on a different trip instead so they wouldn't interfere. Priscillas smiled and nodded. I personally want to see how this plays out. Oh, and the funny thing is that everyone else besides them will think that they normally act like that thanks to the spell Ajuka added as insurance. So let's begin Operation Marriage and Love Trip. Azazel nodded as he whispered the spell, and the mirror began to show the reflections of the different individuals that it was shown, and each reflection appeared next to another one, and the two crossed each other. Rias and Kekos were snuggling with Isseis, and their bodies glowed red and white respectively, before a small red ball left Rias and the white one left Kekos. The two flew past each other and went into each other's bodies. Rias' body ended as she grabbed Isseis' head and his forehead. Kekos' body snuggled deeper on his stomach as she enjoyed the warmth. The Kendo and Irina glowed purple and gold before the same balls left their bodies and went into each other's. Irina ed as she pulled closer to Isseis, while Lucano smiled as she pulled Isseis' dot. Ravel and Asia glowed orange and yellow before the same things occurred with them. They smiled as they pulled closer to their love interest. Zenovia's body was sleeping on the couch since that's where she collapsed after a hard workout and a nice hot bath. She never felt her body glow blue, and the ball left her open mouth before it went out of the room towards a box that held a certain vampire that held a plushie of Isseis. The boy glowed pink, and the ball left him and left the box as well before the two balls exchanged, and they entered each other. Gasper began to snore lightly for a bit and had his mouth open as he imagined himself as Zenovia with Isseis. Zenovia's body moved on the couch as she turned and got into a more feminine position when sleeping and didn't snore at all. Raswas, Tsubaki, Sona and Kiba were sleeping at the site's home. Kiba was there since he got help up at a contract and was too tired to make it home, so he asked if he could stay at the Citri house for the night. Sona agreed, but only if he slept in the guest room. Tsubaki was sleeping and Kiba was in the room next to hers, and the same thing happened to them as a grey ball left her body and entered Kiba, which made a silver ball leave the night and entered Tsubaki's body. Sona and Raswas were sleeping in the same room since the Valkyrie got a little lightheaded when drinking some sake and collapsed on her bed. Sona couldn't move her, so she decided to just endure it for the night. As she tried to sleep, the heiress felt her body relax as a navy blue ball left her body and entered the Valkyrie's mouth that was wide open with a little drool coming out. The Valkyrie smiled like she was having a happy dream before a white and grey ball left the Valkyrie and entered the heiress. The heiress giggled in her sleep as she pictured herself with Isseis under the moonlight, and the boy took off her glasses and cups her s. The heiress was blushing lightly as she went back to dreamland. Murayama and Cadis were sleeping when they felt even more relaxed as they imagined themselves as Kuroka and Aika. The two were with Isseis in bed, and they were in some very seductive nightgowns which showed off their curves, and the three of them began to before Isseis spoke to them and made them so happy that they slept next to him for the remainder of the night. Aika and Kuroka were dreaming of being the Kendo duo, and as Isseis charged at them with Ascalon, the two of them were studying his body and the sweat on his forehead and body. The two blushed before they tackled him and began to make out with him. Isseis smiled as he dreamed of proposing to each of them and for some reason felt like he saw more girls in his dream than before. The rings that he made glowed as they were reacting to their future owners. A few more rings materialized next to them and they had colors that matched their owner as well. The next morning, Isseis woke up and noticed that the girls were still asleep, so he wiggled his way out of bed and made his way to the bathroom. He showered and got ready so he could go pick up their transportation. Isseis recently got his driver's license and went to pick up the car that they would all be riding in, and luckily Raswas would be there to help him. Isseis got the paperwork and headed out to the rental shop to get the bus before leaving a note to let the girls know where he would be. Unknown to the chaos that's about to unfold. Zenovia's body woke up and she yawned a bit before stretching. She was too tired to even notice that she was in the living room. She climbed the stairs and made her way to her room as she opened the door and smiled as she saw his box. Zenovia grabbed her toothbrush, which looked like a little vampire, and put her toothpaste on it and began to brush her teeth. After taking care of her teeth, she felt that she had to go. So she made her way to the toilet, and when she pulled the lid off she released and relaxed until she felt something wet against her leg. She looked down to see that she didn't have her lower half. She was then shocked to see she had. Gasper then remembered that girl sat, so he sat down and began to wipe his new legs. Gasper felt relieved. Then after washing his new hands, he looked at Zenovia's body. He looked like her and he sounded like her. He looked at her chest before gulping and grabbed his assets and edged at the feeling. Wow. Now I know why Issei senpai likes women so much. He had more and more until he heard movement in the room. He used his new night speed to see his body get out of the box and was a bit sleepy until his eyes widened and he pointed a shaking finger at her. Why am I standing there? Zenobia looked to see that she looked like Gasper in every way and looked to see her new nether regions and almost fainted until Gasper caught her. Zenobia? Is that really you? Zenobia calmed down before nodding. Yes. But I don't understand. How did this happen? Gasper didn't know either. We need to let Rias know right now so we can figure out what's going on. He then sniffed his new body before gagging. But first a shower. Zenobia didn't know why until she smelled her body and plugged her nose before joining him. The two didn't speak to each other and cautiously inspected the other one's body. They then left the shower and made their way to Isseis' room since that was where they could find Rias. They opened the door and were shocked to see Rias have a red tail and cat ears on her head as she ate and stretched like a cat would when waking up. Then the cat, like Rias, looked at Zenobia and Gasper until asking, "Good morning. What brings you two here?" Zenobia walked forward in her small body and asked, "Rias?" Rias blinked before shaking her head. "No, I'm Kekos." "Why would you call me Kekos?" was shocked at her new chest before looking at her own body before looking at her new assets. She smiled coyly before hugging her new body as she spun happily. "I'm so happy. My wish really did come true." Zenobia and Gasper quickly asked, "Wait. What wish?" Kekos stopped spinning and smiled. "Yesterday I wished I was like Rias and I guess my wish did come true." She hummed happily as she hugged her new chest before looking at her new butt. Rias then woke up to see her own body, but with cat-like ears and a tail, until she looked at her tiny lowly body and was so shocked that she pounced on her own body. "Okay, copycat. I don't know who you are, but when I'm done with you," Xavier pulled Rias off of Kekos and was amazed by his new strength. "Rias, relax. That's really Kekos and you're really Kekos now. Think back. Did you wish for anything that involved Kekos?" Rias' amber eyes were widened until she remembered her wish. "So that's what made me Kekos." She looked at the others and pondered if the same happened to them. The rest of the girls woke up and they were surprised too until Rias calmed them all down. "Okay, so we know that this happened because of each of us making a wish yesterday. We need to know who's who, so let's start." Kekos' body was labeled Rias. Rias' body was labeled Kekos. A Kendo was Irina. Irina was a Kendo. Gasper was Zenobia. Zenobia was Gasper. Asia was Ravel and Ravel was Asia. Sona and her group joined and were in the same situation they were in. Sona was in Roswis and vice versa. As were Tsubaki and Kiba. They all made a wish and for some reason they were all swapped with a person in mind. So we don't know what caused us to switch, but we can't just pause our trip. We're already ready to go, but we need to act like each other. Sona was surprised. "Rias. We hardly know how to act like one another, much less me, since I'm in your rook and all I know about her is that she cries a lot." The Valkyrie was shocked. "I will have you know it's probably easier being you since you barely show any emotion." The two wrestled with each other until Kiba and Tsubaki broke them up. They all then decided that they would have to make do with their situation for now until they learn how to reverse it. Murayama was nervous and she continued playing with her tail until she imagined Issei making out with her and having kittens with her. Murayama's face was flustered and Cadis was giggling since Aika was hoping to tease Cadis in secret about her tininess. All in all, the trip was going to be a mixture of fun, crazy, and memorable. Let the love trip begin. Unknown to them, they'd be expecting company. Sona Citri's peerage would have been on a different trip, but they accidentally boarded the wrong one and were heading to the same place that Issei and Co. would be staying at. It seems as though the rest of the Citri peerage got affected by the mirror as well since they made a wish as well. You see, each of them had a wish to swap with someone else. Saji and Momo were swapped with each other, and the reason was that Saji always claimed he was jealous of Issei, but in truth, he was jealous of everyone else that's around Issei. For you see, Saji was really a girl in disguise, but the only problem was that she didn't know how she should confess to Issei, so she wanted to swap with Momo. Momo wanted to understand why he respected Issei so much and why he was always trying to beat him in battle. Tomo and Tsubasa were also affected by the swap, since Tomo wanted to understand why Tsubasa was so infatuated with Issei, and Tsubasa personally wanted to help Tomo with her fetish for young little boys. Tsubasa also made some fanfic of herself, Issei, and Tomo doing the deed and having some fun. Rias and Raruko were swapped as well, and that was because Raruko lacked confidence in herself and wished she had Rias' confidence, which caused them to swap. Rias didn't mind being in the young pawn's body and personally wanted to see this through to the end. Raruko wanted confidence to confess her feelings to the dragon. Rias has a crush on Issei, but wasn't as passionate as Raruko or Tsubasa, so she figured she could learn more by being there with them. Issei was on top of the roof of his new school, having his lunch. It had been a year since he was kicked out of Kuo Academy for a prank he didn't pull, but as usual Mitsuda and Motohama pinned the blame on him, and he was the one who took the full burn. His parents believed him when Issei said that he wasn't responsible for the prank. Ujimi High School was on the other side of Kuo town, but it was more than happy to accept Issei into their school. While he was there, Issei reunited with his old friend, Takashi Kimuro. The two were sophomores when they met up, and Takashi told him that he and Rei didn't work out, which made Issei feel sorry for the guy, since he always thought that those two would work out. Issei had to admit that as he continued his school life there, he enjoyed it a lot more since he had true friends and someone he could rely on and depend on. There were also a few more interesting characters in the school, such as Saya. She was like Shana Shitori but more of a tsundere genius. Siko, the master of Kendo and much more skilled than the Kendo club from Kuo Academy. Alice, the freshman who loved animals and always had a bright and cheerful smile. The school nurse, Shizuka, who was a bit of a ditz and sometimes a bimbo but an excellent nurse. Most people thought she took most of the blood that goes to her brain. Issei wasn't the brightest or sharpest tool in the shed, but he was able to put his past behind him and pass with A's and B's in his entrance exam and his sophomore's midterms. Over the past couple of months, Issei had learned that he held a sacred gear inside of him that was known as the boosted gear. He was taught by Drag, the spirit within the gauntlet, and learned how to use his power from the dragon. There were only a few people who knew of his power, and most of them were the ones who helped him learn how to survive in cases of emergency. Issei was looking at his phone's clock until he noticed a man at the school gate. The man looked dark and gray, which made the student worried until his partner alerted him of the danger. "Partner? That man is dead. He's a zombie. Kill him before he harms others." Issei nodded as he sent a quick text to his contact and teacher in the school before heading to the gate, but the zombie bit one of the English teachers. One of the teachers, Kyoko Hayashi, was about to touch the man to see if he was alright until the new zombie lurched at her and almost bit her. Until Kyoko opened her eyes to see that Issei Haidu was wielding a pair of red gauntlets on his hands with a set of claws coming out of them. Issei learned that he could change the shape of the gauntlet and the new form suited his style very well. He saw more zombies approaching the gate and quickly grabbed the teacher's hand. "Come on. We need to get moving." Kyoko was still startled as she was being pulled by her student to the one place that he was sure they could get help. More zombies began to bang on the school's gates until they began to break through the gates and enter the grounds. The alarm was sounded and the students were freaking out over the zombie apocalypse. Issei and Kyoko ended up at the nurse's office. He opened the door to see Shizuka packing a couple of medical supplies that seemed necessary for survival. He smiled as he saw the nurse and hugged her. "I'm glad you're safe, Shizuka-chan." The nurse giggled as she hugged the boy. "It's nice to see that you're still doing well. Can you help me get the medicine packed up? We'll need it in case any of us are injured." He nodded and proceeded to help until he got a call that he quickly answered. "Hello? Issei? Is that you? Thank God you're alive." "Takashi, oh man, am I glad to hear that you're safe. Where are you and do you have anyone with you?" "Yeah. It's me, Saya, Rei, and Hisashi. We managed to get to the school rooftop, but these zombies are coming like crazy. We're holding them off, but we're not sure for how long. We could really use some help." Issei nodded. "I'll try to get there as quickly as I can. Stay safe." He clicked the phone off and the door slid open to reveal Siko and Sekvira Agers. Sekvira was almost like Rias and Shauna from his old school, but she was actually a robot otaku. Sekvira looked at them and nodded. "Glad to see there are more of you safe and sound. Are there any others?" Issei nodded. He trusted her especially since she was one of the devils that he completely trusted. "Yes. There's Saya, Rei, Hisashi, and Takashi. They're on the rooftop holding off a couple of them, but I'm not sure for how long. Is there a way we can get out of here?" Shizuka nodded. "We can take the school bus so we can escape, but it's in the front of the school. We need to get going so we can get the bus. I have the keys already." Kyoko was still shaking from fright until Issei went next to her and tapped her shoulder. She was startled a bit until she looked at Issei. "Are you scared?" The teacher nodded. "I don't know why this is happening. I'm only a teacher. I don't know why this is happening. Everything was fine this morning, so why?" Siko put a hand on her shoulder. "I get it that you're scared, but we need to get out of here as soon as possible. Do you want to come with us or would you prefer being killed by them?" Kyoko was scared as she looked at the zombies and covered her mouth before nodding quickly. Sekvira grabbed Issei's hand and brought him over to the other side of the room. "Can you go assist the others on the roof? We'll be fine. I can use my magic to make a barrier and keep us invisible, but I need you to find any survivors and bring them to the bus. Can you do that?" Issei nodded and summoned the gauntlet. "I got this." Sekvira smiled as she hit him. For good luck. Issei grinned as he went to the back. "I'll distract them so you guys can get to the bus." "Okay." Shizuka and Siko nodded, but Kyoko was worried until Sekvira calmed her down. "Don't worry. He'll be fine. Trust me." Kyoko nodded to her before looking at Issei. "You better come back." Issei nodded to the teacher. "I will." The warrior ran through the zombies to the rooftop while using the claws of crimson energy from the gauntlets. He sliced through each of them while blood covered his arms. He was getting closer and closer to the roof. Give me a boost. Boost. Issei felt the extra surge of power in his body. He charged in as he continued his killing spree until he finished seeing his target. Takashi, Rei, Saya, and Hisashi. They were holding them off, but Hisashi was clutching his left arm, which made Issei think he was bitten. Issei readied his claws as he rushed in once more and cut them all down. The group was shocked to see Issei Haidu cut through multiple zombies with crimson-red claws. After killing off the last ones, he walked to the group and was happy they were fine until he looked at Hisashi. Rei looked at the two worried until Issei scared them all when he asked. "You were bitten, weren't you?" Hisashi was frightened until he nodded. "Yes. I only have about 3 minutes left." Issei nodded as he looked at his claws. "I am sorry it's come to this, my friend. I'm also sorry that I couldn't help you." Hisashi nodded. "It's fine. Please kill me before I..." His skin began to gray and his eyes became fogged until he groaned at him. Issei didn't blink as he sliced off the head of the zombie and said a quick prayer for his friend's soul. "May you rest in peace." Rei cried loudly as Takashi hugged her. Saya looked stoic, but you could see her fist clench so hard that one would think she almost drew blood. Issei heard his phone ring and he answered it. "Issei. It's me, Sakura. Good news, we made it to the bus. Also, we managed to rescue a few more students along with one of the other teachers. He's Koichi Shido. Meet us as soon as you can." Issei nodded as he put away the phone. "Alright." He looked at the three of them and replied. "We have a way out of here, but it requires us to jump and land on the bus. Can you three do that?" They nodded until Saya asked. "What will you be doing?" Issei looked at her with a serious look in his eyes. "Making sure they don't follow us." The bus came around and Issei made sure the three were in a good position. The bus stopped as the emergency roof was opened. The three nodded to each other until they jumped. Sakura saw this and used a bit of magic to lessen the impact. They landed on it with a soft thud and made their way inside. Issei smiled until he looked at the school. "Heh. Never thought I would destroy my school, but it's necessary." The door opened up and saw a few zombies making their way towards him. Issei chuckled as he spoke with Drag. "Hey Drag. My power is based on my emotions, right? Can I use them to bring forth the balance breaker?" Drake seemed to ponder this and then replied. "Release all of your emotions and it should be able to unlock it," Drake said. Issei nodded as he released all of the emotions he had built up in him. A giant dark red beam exploded from the rooftop of the school and the group on the bus heard the roar that penetrated the air. The zombies temporarily stopped as they were clutching their heads. "Balance breaker," Issei screamed. "Welsh dragon balance breaker." Issei was covered in the red light and then it became red scaled armor and green jewels at his joints. He also grew scaly wings that grew out of his back. He glared at the zombies before talking to Drake. "Takes control of the wings while I fight. Once the bus gets out of the blasting range we will fire a beam on the school. So let's charge up," Issei said as they began the charging. He saw the bus overhead and it was leaving the school grounds. He smirked. "Okay, they are out of the way." Drake took Issei into the sky and the green ball charged up and as soon as it was the size of a soccer ball, he punched it. "Dragon shot," Issei said, punching the small ball that became a giant laser. It hit the school and as it made impact, it blew up. The school and zombies were destroyed in the blast and as the group in the bus turned to see its destruction, Issei was flying after the bus and landed gently on the roof. He deactivated his armor and Drake activated the reset. Issei felt woozy and fell asleep on the roof. They managed to get away from most of the zombies, so they decided to relax for a bit and stop near one of the neighborhoods in town. It was Issei's home that they ended up at. Issei got up early and saw that his parents were still home and alright, which made him happy that his parents were still alive, as were Rias and Takashi's parents. Shizuka, Siko, Rei, Saya, Kyoko, Takashi, Alice, and another girl named Mikuyuki had joined the team as they huddled up in the home, while Koichi Shido left with the bus and a few other students who were loyal to the teacher, or as Issei would call him, a wolf in sheep's clothing. The parents and teachers were discussing their next move while the students were watching the news of what was happening outside. "Hello there, people of the sector. People are evacuating the north side of town. I repeat, if you are still alive, head to the safe point in town. I repeat, head to the north side of town." The message was going across the TV. Issei and a few of the others saw this as a re-evaluation, but the issue was that they were in the western section of Kuo town, so it would take some time to get to the evacuation point. Issei looked at Miku and signaled her to follow him. He led her to his room where she was blushing as if she was expecting something to happen to her. Issei had heard of how Miku was called a slut and a whore in the school, but after he did some investigation, he learned that she was actually a succubus. The woman had succumbed to Issei's power and a way for him to learn information from around the school, especially if it involved a certain teacher that he didn't like. Sakura knocked on his door and Miku opened it for her and the devil let herself in. She sat next to Issei while putting her head on his shoulder. It seems that this has turned into a disaster to a wonderful Friday. It seems the Kuo Academy was also attacked as well. Issei asked to know if any made it out and the heiress responded. Yes. A small group was able to escape. Rias Gremory and Sona Citri were able to escape with their peerages. The supernatural world seems to be safe from the zombies, but what's strange to me is that only small towns in Japan such as Kuo Town are being infected. No news about it happening in the United States or anywhere else. Miku patted Issei's leg as she sat on the floor. The ed teacher seems to think that since this world is ending its best that he has loyal followers to his beck and call. Especially females so they can repopulate the new world, or so he says. Issei just found another reason to hate the man even more and got a call from one of his old contacts from Kuo Academy. The red girl like Kiryu. She was the only girl in the school who knew that he didn't do it, which was why they met in secret and were secretly dating. If Kuo Academy had heard that one of their students was dating the one who did the prank, there was the possibility that she would be kicked out. Issei couldn't let that happen to her, so they kept their relationship a secret as he attended his other school. Sakura knew this and was okay with Issei dating Aika. She even helped Aika learn magic to defend herself. Issei. It's me, Aika. Issei smiles as he hears her voice. It's nice to hear that you're well. Did you get out of the school okay? Is anyone else with you? Aika nodded as she looked out her bedroom window and saw the zombies try to get in the home, but were quickly killed by the bullets in their home. Yes. I'm fine. I was able to escape. Also a few of the others followed me here. Mitsuda and Motohama are here as well, and the entire Kendo club helped my bodyguards get us back to our home. We'll be pulling out in a few days to the evacuation site in the north so we can be free. The two idiots seem to be sorry for pinning the blame on you, but a few of the sluts from the Kendo club still believe it was you. Except for two. Murayama and Katis. Seriously? Aika nodded. Yep. They're the only ones with enough brainpower to put two and two together to see that you were set up. I'm glad to hear that you and your family are okay as well as a few of your classmates. There are rumors on the web saying this is some kind of bioweapon, but it's strange since it's only affecting Japan and nowhere else. Issei nodded in return. Indeed. It is strange. We'll probably be heading to the evacuation camp at some point in a few days. Keep me posted. Stay safe. Aika nodded. You too. Let Sakura know that I hope she's safe as well. Goodbye and have a safe night. Love you too, Aika. Bye. He ended the call and sighed before looking at the streets. There weren't any zombies in the streets for now, but he had a feeling that he needed to do something. He got up and Miku on her forehead before singing Sakura's and headed to the window. I'm going to go for a walk. Don't follow. He summoned his armor and released his wings. He left his room with his wings flapping in the air. After he left, the two went down to the living room to see the adults and their classmates watching the news. They joined in the activities as well as they watched a female reporter in one of the parks with a couple of officers shooting at the zombies. As you can see, whatever is going on has been blocked off by a blockade set by "Oh my, what is that?" the female reporter said as the screen panned over to the horde being attacked by a red figure that was breathing fire. The zombies groaned in pain as they were being burned to nothing but ash. As the figure roared into the sky, it went towards the spot where a little girl, about 10 years old, with brown hair was crying as she held her pet dog. The figure calmed the girl down and petted her head until she smiled and latched onto his neck. The girl smiled as she and her dog got in the man's arms. He spread his wings once more and flew into the sky, leaving behind the shocked reporter, her cameraman, and the police officers. The reporter was frozen in place as she looked at the sky before looking at the camera with new confidence as she spoke. It looks like something is watching over us if the world sent this mysterious person to protect us. May these monsters meet their fate throughout their existence, and may God and demons bless whatever is out there protecting us. She said with vigor and bravery as the camera zoomed back to her. The group was amazed by the figure and began to pack up what they needed before they would head out tomorrow to the evacuation point. It may be dangerous, but as long as they stick together then they just might be able to escape with their lives and find freedom in these dreary times. Gasper Vladi was eating his lunch and he did enjoy the display, but he couldn't taste the delicious lunch because of the sadness that's in his chest. He looked at the bottom of the school to see a boy that looked similar to his former senpai and idol, but was replaced by this guy that was a younger version that acted like he was Mr. Perfect, but Gasper knew the truth that this inferior version of his real senpai is a wolf for trash and sheep's clothing. The younger brother was named Kazuma, and the only difference between him and his senpai is that Kazuma had green eyes and Issei had chocolate brown eyes, which for some reason made Gasper feel calmed and relaxed when he looked at him. The young vampire was disgusted that the girls took a liking to him almost instantly, like they had forgotten all what Issei had done for them. Rias and Kendo enjoyed spoiling him and even did the deed with him, which Gasper knew of since he could hear it in his box. Kekos and the scumbag were basically making out whenever they got the chance due to her mating season and how she enjoys being held in his arms. Zenobia and Asia were the ones Gasper was disappointed in most, since Issei asked Michael for Asia and Zenobia to continue being able to pray, which they were grateful for, but then they decided to forget what he did for them after that bastard basically took over his senpai's position as the pawn of the Grimory family. Gasper knew he wasn't the only one, as he knew Kiba was sad about losing his only male friend who helped him in his past issues and even helped him actually smile and be happy for once, instead of acting like the Prince of Kuo. It was the same for Gasper, since he was always afraid of not just his power, but interacting with others. He decided to stay in his box until Issei helped him get out and become more confident. But sadly, Issei had lost the red dragon after Drake decided to leave him for his little brother, since Drake had seen that the kid had more potential and takes training seriously. It made Issei feel down, since he was always in his little brother's shadow, and how others always preferred Kazuma over him, which made him depressed, and when he was with the Orc Club, he thought he could finally be happy, but sadly that wasn't the case. His inner monologue was interrupted as he saw a news update. Gasper clicked on it and was excited as he saw the news broadcast. This just in. A drug trafficking ring that was also using men, women, and children as lab rats were rescued by a group who called themselves the Legion of Heroes. Their leader, the one, was able to deal with the many criminals while he bravely defended his comrades and many others, such as the Swords Master and the Lady Dracula. The image changed to show that the ones called Swords Master and Lady Dracula stopped the criminals while also defending and saving the hostages, while the one who was plowing through the other criminals to buy them time to escape wore a smile on his face that made him calm but confident at the same time as he said his famous catchphrase. "Do not worry. Because I am here." Gasper smiled and cheered as he watched his hero fight off the villains and defend others, and even when others tried to ask them questions, the heroes were only concerned about the survivors. It reminded him of how others and even children in the underworld saw Issei as a hero when he was the Red Dragon. Some kids even looked up to him, but it wasn't until they saw Kazuma wearing the armor and suit did it ruin their image of their hero. They didn't see him the same, but only saw him as some wannabe hero. Then one day a child was watching the news for a project until he saw the hero who called himself the One had saved many construction workers from an accident at their construction site. Ever since then many people wondered who he was and later revealed himself as the One. The man didn't try to play tough or pretend to be a hero in front of the camera. He wore his heart on his sleeve and fought and protected because he wanted to make those who were in trouble smile. Gasper saw the video and knew that he wanted to meet him because for some reason it reminded him of his senpai who inspired him to become better. And so Gasper followed the One everywhere on the news and even made a costume that was similar to the One. He had been shown to dress up like Escanor did when he fought against the demon race in the 7 Deadly Sins, but the armor didn't suit Gasper, so he tried to be more confident like Issei and the One were. He became so obsessed with the hero that after Ravel came to the school as a student, she was mesmerized by the hero and even made him happy when she told him that she met the One herself, along with another hero. Gasper was so envious of her that they chatted and became friends. Ravel revealed that she had a small crush on Issei and told the vampire that the only reason she came to Kuo Academy was so she could finally get to be close to the man who took her heart. Hiba and Gasper did ask if she really meant it until she told them. "Just because he isn't the Red Dragon anymore doesn't mean my feelings change for him. He is the one who I want to be with, so I'll wait until he comes back." And that made the two happy, and others at the school missed Issei since he had left. The reason why Issei left was because he was able to win a competition that allowed him to go to America for 6 months. Issei leapt in joy at the opportunity and promised to text and call his friends when he gets a chance, and the three of them still stayed in contact with the former pawn and even sent them pics of the trip. Ravel was so jealous that she almost wanted to transfer until Kiba told her that he would be coming back soon in a few weeks. It would actually be after the trip to the underworld after their summer vacation. Gasper heard the bell and put his lunch away before Gasper clenched his fist and raised it in the air. "I will get stronger, Issei-senpai. Just watch." He then marched to his next class while being unaware of the One who was watching him. She pulled out her phone and texted. "He's doing well and I can't wait to see you during summer. I hope you tell me all about it." In America, a certain brown-haired and brown-eyed boy was reading the text and smiled. "Hope to see you too, Ravel. Can't wait to see you again." He put his phone away and was relaxing in his apartment until he felt arms wrap around his neck. The face leaned into his ear and whispered, "Come back, Issei. I need my body pillow." Issei chuckled before he went back to bed and hugged the woman before she giggled and put her head on his chest and smiled as she went to sleep. Thank you Issei Aju. For giving me a new life and another chance to live. The woman remembered how she was astray and hated devils for making her life a living hell after she had been forced to be servant to one who used her as a plaything before being used as a sex toy by others until she was able to kill her master and escape to a small town where she ended up meeting her master and savior who gave her a chance to become better. Outside of the apartment was a man who sat on the rooftop with a sword next to him. The man had long, straight blonde hair, blue eyes and a rather muscular build. He wore an overcoat draped over his shoulders as if it were a cape, fluttering behind him while he was in combat. This cape has visible cuts on its end. He then wore a high-collar, Japanese-style button-down shirt dress pants. These pairs of pants contain cuts in their fabric at their hems. Finally, he has a pair of twine sandals, in addition to having a piece of straw in his mouth. He was looking at the moon and looked at the picture in his hand. Angela. I'm happy to give you a chance to live and be happy. I swear I'll protect you, but now it's time to fight by my lord and the one who gave you this new chance at life. Issei Adu. You have my sword and the samurai Mifune to aid you. The woman is walking along a rocky beach as she is being watched by a man who looks like a butler. Looks like it's almost time for us to fight. Hey Diablo, do you think I can add some more to my collection? The man grins as he nodded. Perhaps. But Issei might get mad at you without his consent. She giggled as she nodded. True. I can't wait to see their reactions when Big Brother shows up. The scene changes to a girl with long wavy blonde hair and burgundy-colored eyes and a beauty mark on the lower right side of her mouth. She was dressed rather skimpily, wearing a black bustier suit outfit with heeled black boots and shoulder-long black gloves. Her outfit revealed both her cleavage and the sides of her and has a skull-encrusted peace sign-like buckle attached right above a rivet holding the straps in place. She wore a long collared black cape, which is maroon on the underside, with a large skull-encrusted pink heart pin attached by her left shoulder and a gold bangle, which runs beneath the cape and out the collar, by her right shoulder. Her most prominent feature, however, is the large black hat. It closely resembles a witch's hat, with a skull face on it that occasionally copies her expressions. The hat has large bat wing-like attachments on it. She twirled her scythe around and cut down a couple of thugs that tried to get the jump on her. Next time try better. She felt her phone vibrate and looked at the text before smiling. Looks like it's time for us to get ready. Hey Anna, are you ready? She looked to see a girl beat up a couple of guys with power and speed before she wiped her brow. As she stepped out of the shadows her figure was revealed to the world. She had waist-length blue hair that was tied in a ponytail by orange hair bands with other hair bands going down on each space of the ponytail. She also has a tattoo under the outer corner of her left eye. Her dark blue eyes matched her hair color. Yeah, I'm ready. The lost soul returns as a king. Guo Town. The abandoned church. Murayama was glaring at Rainer as she held the body of Asia Argento. The kind-hearted nun that she had grown close to in only a few days. Unfortunately she was too late in saving her from Rainer as she marveled at the twilight healing that she stole from Asia. Murayama stood up and glared at her. Give them back. They don't belong to you. Rainer looked at her and giggled teasingly. Oh really? And what will you do if I say no? Fight me? She laughed a bit, Belfry summoning a spear. Don't make me laugh. You can act tough all you want, but it won't do you any good. You can barely stand on your 2 feet as you are now. Seems Fried gave you a bigger challenge than I thought. So much for being a master of Kendo. Too bad you didn't have that scared look on your face a bit longer. It reminded me of someone else I killed. Murayama glared as she held her sword. I'm sure. But he was a student and a classmate of yours. How sad that you attended his funeral, even though you said you wished he would die. Murayama's eyes widened in shock as she looked at the fallen. What did you say? Rainer grinned. Why yes. A boy who was so desperate for love that he fell for the one girl that actually gave him a chance, and when the boy and girl had a wonderful date, it was like a classic date you see in a sitcom. Unfortunately, the date ended horribly at a park where the girl asked the boy to do one thing for her. She readied her spear and glared at the frozen girl. The boy replied. Of course. What can I do? And the girl smiled before replying and she said. The spear was ready as Rainer grinned with her teeth showing. Would you die for me? Murayama's eyes widened. Rainer threw it and as it neared the girl she shouted. Now die bitch. I do believe that's enough of your monologuing trash. The two were shocked as the spear was stopped by a pale hand. Rainer was surprised before she saw the one who caught it. What the hell? Who are you? The figure before her was a man who had black hair and some kind of helmet that covered half of his head. The man turned to look at Rainer with his emerald eyes that frightened the fallen as she saw nothing in them at all. Who in the world is he? The man then shook his head. Trash is undeserving of my name. But my king wishes to deal with you for what you did to him. Rainer rose a brow. What do you mean when he was alive? I've killed multiple people, and there's no way a mere devil could catch my spear of light. So who are you? The devil looked at the spear before crushing it like it was glass before he looked at his empty hand. Was that truly a spear? I didn't even feel a blade. Raynor growled at this insect for mocking her before summoning 2 spears. Don't you look down on me. She flew to him and was ready to skewer him. He's not even going to bother. TCH. What arrogance. She went to the man and both spears into him. You're dead. Snap. Her eyes widened as she saw her spears break just by making contact with his skin. The pale man brushed the dust away and sighed. So the trash woman struggles to provoke me. How sad you're like an ant trying to stop a giant. Truly a pathetic display. I don't see why my king wishes to kill you, since you couldn't even match his power and strength. You are just a stepping stone and an annoyance in my lord's path. He raised his hand and a green spear appeared. I'll gladly cut you down for him. The wind picked up as the glass broke from an intense pressure that shocked the 2 girls, but the man, who looked outside. Ah. My lord is here. Ooh rrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr looked up to see a rip appear in the air itself, as it opened to reveal a red carpet rolling out of the rip in space, and soldiers in red robes appeared at the side of the carpet and bowed to the portal before a foot came out of the portal. My. How interesting. I can see you went ahead of me, Ulquara. The man now named Ulquara bowed to the man and was on his knees. Yes, but it was only to wipe out any insignificant insects and clean up the trash who would dirty your mere presence, but even mere trash like the ones behind me can benefit from your power alone. Forgive me, my lord. The two girls looked to see a face that looked like an evil but handsome emperor in their eyes. His clothing even matched the air around him as royalty. He wore a mask that was red with a mouth in the shape of a wicked smile, and the eyes were blue that had green around them. The clothes he wore were frightening yet amazing. The armor looked similar to Gilgamesh from Fate, but the armor was red like blood and had green lines going around it. The hair was spiky but dark brown with tints of red. He even had a purple cape on the back of him, and a symbol that looked similar to a dragon was made in black and gold fabric. The man looked at Rainer and walked to her before lifting her chin up to him. She was frightened of the man's presence before he gently rubbed her hair. It's been quite a while since Yoma-chan. Rainer was surprised at the name and asked. Who are you? I don't remember you at all. The king tilted his head. Ah, you don't recognize me. Then again, it has been quite some time since we last met. Yes, the last time we met was at the park where you took my life. He reached for his mask and pulled it off, which made the two girls look shocked as they saw the brown eyes that they remembered with a sharp and stern glare, as the face looked like it was a king's face, not a child. If you still haven't remembered, then allow me to say who I am. My name is… Crash. The ceiling broke as three bodies fell and they landed in front of the group, while Rainer gasped as she saw her comrades. Donasik. Kalwerner. Middled. It can't be. After they fell, a red-haired woman with bat-like wings and a purple-haired one flew in to see the group before the door was broken into by a blonde-haired boy and a little white-haired girl. Ulquara moved in front of his lord before they made a move, and the soldiers raised their swords before the king raised his hand to stop them. Hold. He then looked at the small group before him. Who is in charge of this small group? The red-haired one put her hands on her hips and walked to him. I am. My name is Rias Gremory. Heiress of the Gremory family and the one in charge of protecting Kuo town. This town is my territory and you two are trespassing. Speak who you are and why you're here. She glared at them while bringing out her aura before the green-eyed one narrowed his eyes at her. Silence, woman. My lord was a resident of this little territory of yours and he deserves respect for not killing you where you stand here and now. Rias looked at the man behind him. Is he so strong he needs to stand behind his subordinates to fight his battles for him? The blur kicked her in the back and Rias was on her knees and gasped as she saw a dagger next to her dot. Don't you dare speak to him that way, cow. You're lucky you're still alive after showing disrespect to our lord and my king. I suggest you do what he says and show some respect or else your little group just might not live tonight. Rias gasped as she looked to see others holding her peerage hostage with their weapons in a position where they could die. The one holding her was a black-eyed girl that had black hair with a blonde piece of hair with a mask that covered half of her face with some kind of carapace. The weapon was a dagger that was across her and it made her sweat seeing she could easily die right then and there. The man released his aura and it calmed his subordinates but terrified the others as they sensed the power behind it. And it doesn't feel like it's all of his power. The man looked at them and nodded. Allow me to clear things up and introduce myself. My name is one that probably was only remembered by very few in the world of the living, but I'll tell you anyway. Issei Haidu. The king of Hueco Mundo and the leader of the Espadas. The guardians of Las Noches. Those who knew this Issei bowed their heads lightly in respect, while Rias and the others were surprised to see that the human Issei was actually a king of some sorts and led his own army. Issei looked at the girl in Murayama's arms and asked, "Who is this girl? Has she died?" Murayama looked at him and nodded. "Her name is Asia. Asia Argento. She died after that woman took her sacred gear. Can you save her?" The man nodded. "Yes. I can help her, but I can only do it if she has her sacred gear." He looks at Rainer and pointed a finger to the girl. "Rainer. Give the rings back to her." Rainer's mind said no, but her body compiled and took the rings off of her fingers and she put them back on the nun's ring fingers. Issei nodded before putting a hand on the white sword that was on his hip and he drew it out for all to marvel at the magnificent blade. The blade was white as snow. Pure and untainted. It had a blue hue as Issei looked at the girl, which made Murayama put her down and move away before swinging across the girl's body, but there was no mark or cut as it went across her. Her body glowed with a white hue before it left. Her mouth groaned as her eyes opened lightly to see the one who resurrected her. "Welcome back to the world of the living, Asia Argento." She gasped before turning to see Murayama. "Murayama. Is this heaven?" Murayama shed tears of joy before shaking her head. "No, silly. You're back here in Kuo town." She hugged the girl and smiled as she was so glad that Asia was back and alive. Murayama then saw Issei watching her and Murayama went on her knees and bowed with her head touching the floor. "Issei Haidu. Thank you for giving Asia back her life," and she cried as she shouted. "Forgive me for saying you should just die." She clenched her fists as she felt a hand on her head and saw Issei looking at her brown eyes. "I already forgave you, Murayama. However." He looked at Rainer and his deceased comrades. "I do wish to punish Rainer for taking my life." It was late at night, most people were already asleep except for one child who's been oh so lonely ever since his childhood friend left for England. The child was playing his game and was happy beating another boss. "Yes. Digifuse is the best. I'm not going to let them be weak. I'll look after them for you, Rin." He and Rin had been gaming partners and they really loved multiplayer games, so which was why they enjoyed that game so much. Issei, however, didn't seem to have fun, at least, not without Rin. Issei looked at his game sadly. "I wish you were still here, Rin, but now, I have no friends I can play with." Issei looked at his game, seeing his most powerful Digimon, Belzebuman and Beelsterman. "Heh. At least I got my starters." He then saw the time and yawned. "Man, if I don't sleep, Mom is gonna go to be mad." He saved his game and turned it off before heading to Dreamland. Little did Issei know, his Digivice turned itself on once he went to sleep, showing Belzebuman and Beelstarman seemingly having a conversation, and it involved their brown-haired friend. "I'm telling you we need him. He's the only one who can help us with this issue we have." Belzebuman shook his head. "And I told you that he's not ready for it." Beelstarman glared at him. "Look, we are in a deadly war and we need to summon him. He's the only one who can help us. All we've been doing is playing cat and mouse, and most of the team is sick of it. Plus even you know that others are suffering. We can't fight to our full potential until our partner is here." Belzebuman sighed. "We'll see what he thinks then, we are his partners after all." Beelstarman nodded. "I suggest we bring him here now. That way he can have an understanding of what's happening here. We do have the power to. The device connects us and him to both of our worlds." Belzebuman nodded, he then looked up to see Issei sleeping. "The question is, how do we bring him here, even with that connection?" Beelstarman was thinking until she had an idea. "Perhaps if we use the summoning pillar we can bring him here. Also it would be good for a few of the others. Especially Laylaman. Why did Arena have her as one of her strongest warriors? I will never understand." Belzebuman chuckled. "Sounds like someone is jealous. Shove it, Beels." The two began to make their way to their base unknown to them. They were being watched by a spy that was revealing their conversation to 5 individuals who were intrigued. At Luciman's castle. So the traitors Laylaman and Beelzeman have finally appeared. The truth was that Beelzeman and Laylaman were once a part of a group known as the 7 Great Demon Lords. And each one of them was powerful and represented a sin of mankind. Laylaman was lust, while Beelzeman was gluttony. Beelstarman, technically being Belzebuman's sister, was the second but minor gluttony. However, upon these 3 meetings Issei and Arena, they had changed. As they were watching the scene before them, a fist hit the table. "Lord Luciman. Please allow me. Demon, sin of wrath to slay their supposed master and kill the traitors as well. I will be sure they learn of what happens when betraying you." Luciman looked at the demon and glared at him, silencing the reckless wrath. "Silence yourself, demon, do you want them to know we are watching them?" Demon wanted to speak again, but kept his mouth shut. "Quell your wrath for now, we will stop them and kill their little master soon enough." Leviathan, anything to report? The Sin of Envy nodded. "Yes, my lord. It would appear that the One Anguiman and the Fusion Warriors, being led by one called Mervaman, have been causing a ruckus in Belfaman's region. My region is secured and protected since they can't invade my water kingdom. But we have lost a few resources since Leylaman and Beelzeman had betrayed us. Shall I send more troops to deal with them? Do so immediately. Demon, make sure your armies are well prepared to deal with this new threat that is coming. Leviathan bows his head as he begins making preparations. Yes, your lordship. Have Belfaman prepare his armies as well, we'll need all the help we can get to eliminate the traitors and this new threat. Leviathan stopped as he looked at his master. Oh my lord, but he is asleep now. Is it wise to wake him up when we know what will happen should he awaken? We can always call on Blastman or Tactaman to take his place. And a few of the others have been asking if you have anyone to replace our gluttony and lust position. We could use more strong leaders to aid us in ruling this world. And possibly the human world. Luciman sighed as he knew the sin of sloth was truly terrifying, and he was the only one who could calm the lazy beast down. Send in Blastman and Tactaman, and I'll leave you, Leviathan and Demon to pick our new lust and gluttony representatives. Luciman turned back to the screen to see Beelzebuman, Leylaman and Beelstarman at the summoning pillar. Let us see what you have in store for us, humans. The next day. Issei woke up and smiled before seeing that he had a new notification on his game. A new notification already? Must be a bug fix or something. He looked it over and went ahead and hit the install button, but it wasn't just an update for that, it was so the other world could establish a connection with the human world. The pillar glowed as the three were there at the pillar. Leylaman looked at Beelzebuman and sighed. How long until we establish a connection? About 5 minutes. Did you get reinforcements to protect the area just in case? Leylaman nodded. Yes. And Juman and Mervaman are with the fusion warriors to protect this area. I still have my own issues with this idea. He's only 10 years old and he's going to be summoned to a world that he thinks of as a game. Are you sure this is a good idea? Beelzebuman sighed. At this point, Leylaman, we have no other options. He turned to Nightman and nodded. Make sure the enemy doesn't make it to the pillar. Protect it at all costs. Yes, my lord. We shall not fail you. Beelzebuman nodded and looked at his sister. You know you can't come. His sister sighed as she nodded. I know, but why her? I have been with him as long as you are a big brother. Beelzebuman sighed. It would hurt him more than me to see you get hurt, and you know it. Beelstarman knew her brother was right, and it made her heart ache to see him sad. Very well, brother, but you too must be careful. And if any harm comes to Issei, so help me. Leylaman stopped her. Just be sure that you're still alive and I don't have to save you again. The pillar shot a blue energy pillar into the sky, and Beelzebuman nodded to Beelstarman and nodded. Stay alive. You too. He walked into it and Leylaman was about to walk until she was stopped by her rival. You know I still don't trust you. Leylaman rolled her eyes. Star, we've been over this. Look. I don't care whether you were with Lady Arena or not. I don't care that you saved me or betrayed the generals, but you and I both know that I don't trust you because at that time you almost went back to Luciman and almost killed my brother. Leylaman winced, not liking to remember the idiot move she almost made. Star, don't remind me please. Beelstarman looked away from the woman and walked to the knight. Go. And no, I'll trust you, just this once. Leylaman looked at her and sighed. Thank you and I'm sorry. She went into the pillar and she woke up to see it was her master's room. Where's Beelzebuman? Right behind you. Layla jumped in shock, the man chuckled. God, I hate it when you do that. Any sign of Issei? No, it seems he's gone to school for the day. Shoot, we need to find him now. I don't know how long our friends can hold the evil forces back. The door was opened to reveal his mother. Issei Haidu. If you are here I swear I will. She stopped as she looked at the two unknown figures and asked. Who are you two? Meanwhile at school. Issei was at recess again and sighed for being left out again from the games. It felt like he was an outcast and they didn't even want to talk to him until he heard. Hey Issei. He turned to see a girl with tan skin, lime green hair and red eyes smile at him. Her name was Emerald. The new student who had been at his school for a few months after Rin had left and she recently lost her mother, but Issei didn't show her any pity and tried to be a friend for her, which she was happy to have. Hey Emmy, how are you today? Emerald smiled as she looked at her friend and played with him. I'm good, though I wish I was at home playing Digimon. Oh my gosh, same. The two laughed before the teacher came to him and Emerald. Excuse me Issei Haidu. Your mother's here to pick you and Emerald up. But why? She says it's a family issue. The two nodded and his mother didn't say anything until they were brought into his home to see two individuals that Issei was too shocked to speak, so Emerald spoke for him. Issei. Are you seeing what I seen? Beelzebuman and Leylaman in my home and waving at us. Yep. Mom? What's going on? They told me they'll explain once we're inside, sweetie, but they seemed quite rushed to meet you. Leylaman put him on her lap and nodded. Look, before you say anything, know what we're saying is true. Issei, we are real creatures, but we're not part of your world. We exist in there. She pointed to his game and Issei rose a brow. Is this a trap? The man laughed a bit before shaking his head. No. See if you remember this. I want to be a hero someday like my friend Rin. We can defend others and stop the villains. Sound familiar? Issei's jaw dropped at this, Belzebuman laughed aloud. So, believe us now kid. He just nodded, but Emerald asked. Hold on. Why are you two even here? And tell her to get away from him. She took Issei away and held him close. Belzebuman stood up. Look, we don't have much time. We need his aid. Aid in what? Defending your world from ours. Issei's eyes widened until he took a lucky guess. Lem guess, Luciman and his cronies. Yes. Laylaman and I were two of his subordinates until we left him and joined the Fusion Warriors, which was when you and Rin became our masters. I see, but what made you two betray him in the first place? Also, where's Beelstarman? She's with the others defending the pillar that we used to get here, and it was actually you and Rin who helped us join your side after you defeated us. Issei remembered him and Rin obtaining Belzebuman and Laylaman after defeating them in that special event they did, and he got Beelstarman as a bonus. Issei then realized something that Laylaman said. Wait, Rin's a girl. Laylaman nodded and giggled a bit at his reaction. Why yes. I'm surprised you didn't know that. Though to be fair, she did have a bad habit of going into the men's room with you. Along with dressing like boy and even acted like one. Issei's face turned into a steamy mess, making Laylaman giggle even more as she wanted to see his reactions for the others. I cannot wait to see how flustered he gets upon meeting Beelstarman, Anjuman, and Mervaman. Belzebuman walked to him and crouched down to his level. Either way, we came here because we need you to help us defeat Luciman and the others. So please help us. Issei wasn't sure what to say until Emerald stepped in between them. Hold it. You can't just come here and demand Issei joins you. I already lost my mom and I'm not going to let my friend die because of you. She grabbed Issei, and the two were about to leave until Emerald's device glowed and a dark aura appeared behind her before it became a figure. One that shocked both of the former generals as it appeared behind her. My. It's good to see my former generals again. Belzebuman was shocked before aiming his gun at him. Luciman. That's impossible. There's no way you could have come here. Luciman laughed mockingly before responding. Belzebuman, you were always a naive and foolish one to think I didn't know of the summoning. I have one of my own summoning pillars in secret and I decided to take a human as my own. And who better than a little girl who cares for the boy and despises you? I should thank you for opening the door to the human world with your attempt to bring the boy to your world. I'll let you bring the boy, but be warned, Beelzebub. Traitors die before me and it's such a shame that my dear Laylaman left me. He reached out to her until she smacked the hand away. Don't you dare touch me. Issei looked at Emerald in disbelief, but even she couldn't believe what had just happened. Issei then looked to Belzebuman and Laylaman. He looked scared and confused. Belzebuman noticed this and growled angrily at Luciman. Let the girl go, Luciman. We both know that our powers are limited here. Luciman faked a look of shock before a look of understanding appeared on his face. Why, that's true. Unless of course I have a master of my own who has one of these. We meet again, Belzebuman. The device glowed once more as it opened a portal to his castle, and Issei ran to Emerald as she reached out to him. Issei. Emerald. Luciman swatted him away with one of his wings, and Laylaman caught him. The Dark Angel then smirked at the boy. If you wish to save your friend, then come to my castle and kill me. The portal closed and the device vanished. The portal the generals came in had opened in Issei's home, and Issei's mother looked at Belzebuman and nodded. Keep him safe. Don't worry, I will. I promise. We leave immediately. Laylaman nodded. Issei's digivice began to glow brightly. I promise you this, Mrs. Haidu, no harm will befall upon your son. The two left and the mother looked at her son. Be safe and remember. We'll always love you. Promise me you'll be safe. Issei nodded. I will, Mom. And I will save Emerald. He left and the next thing he saw was that there were the other Digimon who were in his arsenal. No way. Is this real, Yevrian? Belzebuman smirked. Course, your other Digimon really cared about you, so they joined us to help defend your world from ours. And 3 certain female Digimon of yours really wanted to meet you. Issei was then picked up and placed on the shoulders of Beelstarman. You're even cooler in person. She smiled as she loved the compliments until Laylaman grew a tick mark. Okay, that's enough. Beelstarman grinned. What wrong? Jealous. Silence yourself, wench. Beelstarman and Laylaman butted heads until they were hit on their heads with a staff being held by a beautiful winged woman. Now that's enough, you two. Show some respect to our master. She leaned down to see him and smiled. It's good to see you, Issei. I am Anjuman and I'm happy to see you in person. I'm sure you have many questions, but we have a problem. It would appear a certain general doesn't know when to quit and wants to kill the traitors. Belzebuman deadpanned. It's demon, isn't it? Unfortunately, yes. Even when Leviathan left, he's still fighting with Blastman. Care to assist us, Issei? He pointed to himself. Me? How can I help? Laylaman pointed to the device. That device allows you to combine with any of us or even fuse us together. That's why there are only 3 digitivices, but Arena gave you hers. Which means the third one was with Emerald. Wait, fuse. As in, fuse with Sable Zebulon, like Goku and Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z. She laughed and smiled. Not like the show, even though the dance was hilarious. The device allows you to combine with us and use our powers. Unfortunately, you aren't ready to use his powers yet. Then who can I use? The hand clamped on his shoulder and a voice was heard. You can fuse with me. The two turned to see Mervaman and Issei blushed. But isn't that weird since I'm a boy and she's a girl? Laylaman waved him off. Don't worry, it'll be fine. And it's only for you to deal with Demon, then you return to normal. Issei looked at Belzebuman and asked. I'll still be a boy, right? I can't even imagine myself as a girl. Don't tell Laylaman that. Belzebuman sighed. But yes, you'll still be a boy, but you may look more like an adult with a nice amount of muscle, I'd think. Issei's eyes shined like stars at this. Issei breathed a sigh of relief before nodding. So how does this work? The device will allow you to fuse with any Digimon you say, but we warned which ones you pick. Issei nodded and saw it glow before opening. Cue the fusion music. Mervaman. Combine. Mervaman smiles as she becomes energy and enters Issei before her armor and weapons appeared on Issei, and he was amazed by how he looked before asking Beelstarman. Do I look weird? Not to me, stud, but it's time to get serious. The cliffs were destroyed to reveal Demon himself. Belzebuman. Laylaman. I've come to kill you. Suddenly, Issei Mervaman landed before Demon. Your fight is with me, villain. Ha! And why should I be afraid of you? Die, weakling. Slash nail. He slashed at them, but Issei raised his shield and it blocked the hit and he smiled. That all you got? Demon glares before he snaps his fingers to reveal Devilmans, Lady Devilmans, Impmans, and Blastman. Crush them all. Leave the human to me. They roared as they charged and Issei shouted. Charge. Issei noticed a rare white Lady Devilman and she looked quite hesitant when fighting the others. I might be able to get her on our side, but for now, I'll deal with Demon. He clashed with the Demon, but even with this form he can't finish him off since Demon is an annoying opponent. In the game, Demon can use both aerial, physical, and fire abilities, but Mervaman can't fly, which leaves us at a disadvantage. He knows this, so he's sticking to the skies. Come on. There's got to be a way. As he tried to look for an opening, Demon flew in and was about to deliver a serious punch. Suddenly, an ice attack slammed into Demon, causing him great pain. Issei Mervaman turned to see the White Lady Devilman with her hand out. Traitor. What is the meaning of this? The White Lady Devilman didn't speak. Issei Mervaman remembered something and smirked. Oh right, I got you from a super rare event, didn't I? Demon broke the ice and appeared behind her before holding her by the neck. The White Devilman was choking a bit as she tried to claw her way out. If you betray our Lord Luciman, then die with them. He throws her to the ground, but Speroman catches her. She's okay. Issei. Let's combine. Issei remembers Speroman was with Arena before she gave it to him. Thanks, Arena. Let's do this. Mervaman. Time to defuse. I got an idea. She did so and Issei commanded. Time for you two to combine. Speroman. Mervaman. Defuse. The two combined and Mervaman shouted. Jet Mervaman is ready. Issei smiled before looking at the White Lady Devilman. Hey, you good? If so, want to fuse with me? White Lady Devilman blushed and nodded. Alright then. Issei used his device to fuse with her and was a bit embarrassed to see himself as a woman with white clothing as she now had an ice staff. Okay. Didn't see this coming. Issei White Lady Devilman then glared at Demon. Let's see you handle this, Demon. Silver Ice Storm. Demon glares at them and growls as the ice began to weaken him. I have no choice. He lands before them and Belzebuman sees the crown. Don't do it. If you use that power you'll be destroyed. Demon glared at him. Shut up. As if I care what happens to me. The death of you traitors is all I care about. He put the crown on his head and his body began to grow and expand as his own army became pixels and entered Demon's crown. Belzebuman knew there was no stopping him and needed to get Issei out of there. Issei, get out of there. Issei looked at him and shook his head. No. Belzebuman. Didn't you say we're partners? I'm fighting with you. I won't run. You don't understand, Issei. What Demon is about to do is far above what you can handle. Issei yelled at his partner. I don't care. This surprised the Digimon until Issei continued. I have a reason for fighting. I have someone I need to save. Emerald only had her mother and she was so shy before meeting me, but I was able to help her open up and help her smile and be happy. But when she lost her mother, we looked after her and I introduced her to Digimon. For the first time, since Rin left I had a friend and I won't let her down and be used by that monster. He looks at Belzebuman. I won't run and you can't stop me. He offers a hand. So what do you say? Let's fight him together. A partner. Belzebuman looked at Isseis stunned until he smirked. Alright, you got me. Let's kick this guy's butt. Now you both may die as fools. Behold my true form Demon X. The sin of wrath. Issei growled until he looked at Belzebuman. Laylaman said I'm not strong enough to fuse with you completely, but she didn't mention time. How long would I last fused with you? Given the circumstances. 1 minute at most. Issei looked at his device and smiled. Sorry Lady Devaman. He defused with her and sent her with Jetmervaman and looked at Belzebuman. Ready? Belzebuman nodded. Ready as I'll ever be. Issei nodded. Belzebuman. Combine. Everyone was shocked when they heard Issei say this. Issei groaned as his body grew, but the armor of his partner fused with him. Let's go. He flew at Demon and he shouted. De-evolution. Belzebuman X. His body and armor changed to Belzebuman's ultimate form and he aimed the gun at him. The attack charged up. I promise Emerald. I will save you. The attack was ready as Issei yelled. Finishing move. 7th full cluster. The beam fired and the recoil sent Issei away as Demon screamed in pain as the beam tore his body and he looks at the boy. This can't be Demon defeated by a child. Forgive Mellard Luciman. Issei hit the ground and the two defused before Belzebuman checked Issei. Partner. Hey, talk to me. Issei slowly and tiredly opened his eyes. He grinned. That was awesome. Belzebuman snickered before he began to full-blown laugh. The two looked at Demon and Issei saw his device and knew this was a risk. Hey Belzebuman. Is it possible to maybe have one of them join us? Belzebuman's eyes widened. Are you nuts? Why would you want to try that? I mean, White Lady Devaman ended up joining. May wonder if she would mind if I gave her a nickname. Demon chuckled at the two as they conversed. Really? Boy. I was your enemy and tried to destroy you. Why would you try to have me join you? Because you can do good. I mean, look at her. She's one of your kind and she still joined us. Demon eyes widened at the boy's kindness. For the first time in this Digimon's life, he felt him. You are a strange child. As long as I've lived and fought I've always had rage in my body because that is the reason why I existed. Even when Lord Luciman made me a general I was never calm or knew of joy or sadness or fear. I only knew rage and destruction, but yet with you my hatred and anger has been calmed down. Issei grinned. I'm happy to hear that. So what do you say? Will you join our cause, Demon? The Demon laughed before giving his hand to the boy. Very well. I will join you. Issei smiled as the Demon became pixels and entered the device which showed him resting and healing. Hey Belzebuman, do you think we can save this world and Emerald? I really do, partner. Let's fight them all together. Meanwhile at Luciman's castle. Luciman smashed his fist into his desk. That filthy traitor. How dare he work with that stupid human. Don't call my friend stupid, Luciman. Luciman turned to see Emerald in a little cell. The Digimon smirked. Oh come now Emmy, no need to be so mad. Don't call me that. Only Issei-kun is allowed to call me that. She bit his hand but he didn't show pain. Struggle all you want. Soon you'll willfully work for us. He smiled as he looked at the crown in his hand. In fact, I think I've found a suitable host for the sin of lust. Leviathan appeared before him bowed. My lord. The new generals for lust and gluttony are here. Is it true that Demon has fallen? Unfortunately, the fool has joined the rebellion. No matter. Send them in. And I believe we have our new sin of lust. Isn't that right Emerald? Emerald became scared of the evil grin that appeared on Luciman's face. I think you'll have a fun time fighting against your friend before killing him, won't you? Emerald looked at him and tried to break the bindings. Get away from me. Get away. Her face was grabbed by Luciman as he grinned with a sinister smile. Welcome to our council. General Emerald. The crown glowed as a purple aura entered her mind and her body began to shake in pleasure as she grew older. Please stop. I won't fight Issei-kun. Luciman didn't listen to her, he smirked before turning to Leviathan. Who are the new Digimons of lust and gluttony? Black Seraphiman for lust, Ajay Chesman for gluttony, Luciman Sama. Excellent. They may have already taken care of Demon's area, but there's still 6 more worlds to go. He then raised a hand as he patted Leviathan's head. I'm counting on you to crush them, my loyal serpent. Leviathan bowed to him. I swear I won't disappoint, but what about Belfaman? I'm afraid he's a terrifying opponent to us even when he's sleeping. Luciman scoffed. Send in one of the weak mons to awaken him, it won't be our fault if they die. But my lord, you know how angry he is if awoken from his slumber. I mean the only one who can calm him is me. Yes, I'm already aware of that, so leave Belfaman to me while you help our new general get ready. Are you ready to begin, General Emerald? Emerald opened her now violet eyes, she smirked. Yes, my lord. Issei-kun, help me. Excellent. Now go meet your new partner. I have a lazy fool to awaken. He teleported out as Leviathan led her to her new partner. Emerald on the other hand couldn't do anything as she watched her body move and obey the orders of the monster. Issei-kun. Please. Save me. Issei awoke the next day, but was surprised to see White Lady Devaman, Mervaman, Beelstarman, and Laylaman were cuddling with him. Good to see you awake, partner. He looked up to see Beelzebuman, but his whole body hurt before Beelzebuman walked over to him and patted his head. You've been out for 2 days since the fusion and the forced evolution put a massive strain on your body, so we've had to use a lot of healing on you. Luckily you're still alive and good to go. Unfortunately I have some bad news. Issei sat up. What happened? We have a spy in the enemy's territory who just told us that your friend, Emerald Sistari, is the new demon general of lust. Issei looked at him shocked and shook his head. No. You have to be lying. There's no way. It's the truth. He looked to see Anjuman, and she hugged the boy and nodded. It's true. Issei felt tears beginning to fall from his face. He cried into Anjuman's bosom. Beelzebuman felt bad. He growled upon thinking about what Luciman could have done to the girl. Luciman. I'll make sure to do what I should have done when you made Laylaman betray us. I'll kill you. He turned to face the boy and patted his head. Issei. I swear on my name and my gun we will save your friend. But know that you will need to kill and learn that not all of them are kind as we are. Do you understand? Issei wiped the tears away and nodded. What's our next move? The war had officially begun as the master of the fusion warriors had arrived. Issei was making his way to the old school building. He was excited to continue club activities with the rest of the orc members and continue his life as a devil. He had defeated Razor and saved Rias from her marriage. A few devils may hate him, but he didn't care. Nothing could make him happier than to see that huge smile on his master's face. He had saved the woman who had given him a second chance at life. And just maybe, she would see him as more of a man. They did after all. Afternoon Butchu. Issei called as he walked into the clubroom. He held his hand high as he waved to everyone with a bright smile. Issei, perfect timing, Rias spoke from behind her desk. She wasn't as happy as the brunette. In fact, none of the other orc members were as happy as the boy. They were, actually, very quiet and distant. It almost seemed like they got the worst news possible. It was just like how they were when Razor first arrived. Could he be back with a vengeance possibly? What's wrong everyone? Issei asked with concern. No one said a word. They just had these looks of sorrow. Except for Rias. Her eyes had become sharp and cold. Something he saw only in Kaneko or Sona Kaichu. Issei, you've saved me from my marriage and for that I'm very thankful. Rias spoke with true sincerity. She was truly sincere saying that. Nothing could have made her happier than to be free of that womanizing asshole. The brunette, on the other hand, felt wary of his master. He saw her words as something worse. The undertone and hidden meaning he could sense coming despite her joyous tone and positive words. However, during the raiding game your powers failed me, and the only way you beat Razor was through holy items and the sacrifice of your arm, the Redeed explained, her eyes narrowing half an inch. Issei felt a chill run up his spine from the look on her face. It was quite scary, seeing as the only other person who gave him such a look was Rainer. The moment she called him worthless trash and tried to end his life once more in the abandoned church. That look of disappointment and lack of pity. That look was one he knew something bad was right behind. He froze from her eyes, feeling the trauma of that gaze burning to the back of his skull. And to see it in Ria's eyes. His savior's eyes. It was almost mind-breaking. I'm going to give it to you straight, Issei. I can't rely on you using these tactics time and time again. Situations like this may arise once more and stronger opponents shall come before you, Rias stated, thinning her with a firm gaze. How long will it be before you sacrifice everything to that sacred gear? Or face an opponent that holy items won't work on? Will you try to grow stronger or will you continue to be and peep with your friends? Issei took a shaky step forward. But I promise I'll get much stronger. I told you, I'd always protect you. I know what you said, Issei. But I can't take that risk when I trusted you the first time and you fell so short. I thought you would be much stronger than you were and it looks like I made a sloppy decision. What are you saying, Butchu? Issei asked, his voice shaky as his whole body shivered. He never felt so cold, so alone. He was isolated. Issei. I'm trading you to another devil's peerage. Silence filled the room. A slight weight settled on everyone's head as the brunette stood there, unmoving. He didn't speak, he didn't flinch, it didn't even look like he was breathing. But then again, he must have lost his breath after hearing that he was now being sent to another devil. Did all of you agree to this? Issei asked quietly. His fellow reincarnated devils said nothing. They exchanged looks of concern between one another. The boy's voice had changed slightly. It wasn't shaking anymore and seemed dark. It was also colder and more monotone than anything. It was mechanical the way he asked the question. Asia? He spoke up. He slowly rose his head to the blonde girl. The former nun he tried to save from his ex-girlfriend. Do you feel the same as Rias? The girl said nothing. It was obvious she didn't want to answer. Not because she was agreeing or disagreeing, but because she felt her opinion would change nothing. It would only get her into trouble if she dare spoke her mind. The look on Ria's face answered that. And as Issei looked around the clubroom, he could see that everybody had a similar response to him. The Grimoire heir had her leashes wrapped around them. This was a prepared move by Rias, but for how long? Since he lost. Since he saved her. He didn't want to think too long on it. Do see, he muttered. Well, if I'm such a failure, why send me to someone else? Why not kill me like? It was of a personal request, Rias answered quickly. The last thing she'd do is be compared to that fallen angel who feared this boy would grow very powerful. What a joke. Someone personally requested this trade. Issei asked, sounding surprised by the reply. Yes, your fight with Razor piqued her interest. She said I was lucky with how you fought with such passion, all for my sake. When I told her you had fulfilled your role, she quickly offered to trade me for you, the heiress explained. I was a bit hesitant but, after some quick thought, agreed to the deal. Issei felt heartbroken and could feel tears coming to his eyes. His savior, his master, his love interest, was treating him like trash. She was throwing him away after he saved her from what was a terrible marriage. And he made sure that no other suitors would try to take her away from any of them again. He had cleaned up her mess and possibly saved her life. But, in the end, he just found himself being swept up and thrown away. As if he was just some fight dog that had one good bout and now was being put down. Talk about a worthy reward. Why string me along then? Issei asked quietly. Rias rose a brow at this, confused by the question. You had me work hard and train my butt off. You told me how you believed in me and was so proud of me. How I could do amazing things if I just put my mind to it. So why build me up, just tear me down? Answer me that. Issei was trembling. His fists were clenched so tight his knuckles were turning white. It was obvious of his distraught and the rest of the orc was upset to see him in that state. And yet, they still said nothing. Rias, however, spoke up. Issei, you can do some very unique things. But it's the costs I can't afford. Your ed technique is shameful and disgusting. You cannot hold very many boosts without draining your stamina. And the only reason I'm here now is because Asia is a former nun and you gave up your left arm. Iridide's eyes were cold and authoritative, showing her position above the pawn. I told you before, it's only a matter of time before you run out of body parts or we face an opponent that holy items won't work against. I need strong beings, Issei, not a ed child. You're just not enough. Rias, I think you've said enough, a new voice boomed. The entire room fell into a tense silence as a magic circle lit up in the corner behind the group. It was bright and felt different from both the Grimoire and Phoenix's circles. It was powerful, and the raw power it exerted alone was enough to put Issei on alert. Everyone else, besides Asia, expected this person's arrival and stayed silent, despite also feeling overwhelmed. The light made a small flash before it revealed to be a woman that could definitely be described as a beautiful woman. She had blood-red eyes with long red blonde hair that was tied in a ponytail. She wore a red and black dress along with a red fan, red shoes, and red and black hair accessories. She had a charm similar to a poisonous flower. Ah. Priscilla, you're here early. Was Ria's response to her arrival. The young woman looked back at her in return, staring at her for some period of time. Her blood-red eyes met the aquamarine eyes as they said nothing. A tense moment of silence between them was shared, causing the others to look between each other with concern. But it wasn't long before the new face spoke. My apologies for arriving earlier than we agreed upon, but I got a bit ahead of myself. So much that I just had to meet this generation's security and my new pawn. Priscilla answered. She then folded her arms and narrowed her eyes. However, I didn't expect to arrive and hear you belittle him so. I'm not belittling Issei. If anything, I'm telling him of what I think he'll accomplish. He's the weakest security by far, Rias snapped back with an ice-cold tone. Her remark made Issei feel even worse as his broken heart was continuing to be smashed into dust. His head fell lower and his eyes sunk deeper as the tears were so much closer to falling. He could feel his world shattering as the woman he looked up to tore him down, as if he was some broken toy. Was this what the world crumbling around him felt like? A feeling of emptiness as everything he put his effort into was suddenly destroyed. This moment of darkness that surrounded him and made him feel so alone and isolated. If so, it started to grab a hold of him as he felt weak, tired, and most of all, disgusted. Not at Rias or at anyone of the club, but himself. He believed he was completely worthless. That everything he did could have been avoided if Rias hadn't wasted her time on someone as pathetic as him. Priscilla noticed her new pawn's behavior and her eyes narrowed further. Rias, I'll be taking the boy with me. For good. Priscilla stated, with little to no room for argument. This shocked the group, including Rias. What? But he's a student here, as well as a club member. She replied hotly. He'll be transferring. I'm not going to leave him in an environment that is detrimental to his health. The older woman replied. But. You don't need him. He's not your pawn anymore. Priscilla flared a bit of her power to prove she was serious about this. Rias wasn't ready to back down as she flared her own. He's still a part of my club. But he's of no use to you anymore. Isn't that what you just told him? She said as she undid her fan and put it over her mouth as she narrowed her eyes. Rias grit her teeth. While removing him from her peerage was one thing, completely taking him from her was another. Isseis still had some use to her and could have been called on at any time if need be. For her old friend rival to take him away meant losing a valuable asset if a bad situation came up. Weak or not, the secretary was still a useful pawn, even if he wasn't hers. She knew of Isseis' desires to protect his friends and could have used that to manipulate him if such an occasion called for it. He wasn't much, but she was hoping that she'd still have some influence over him somehow. Keeping him as a just in case. Issei, what do you say? Will you join me? Priscilla asked, closing her fan and holding out her hand to the boy. You're giving me a choice? Issei asked, genuinely confused by the older female. He looked at the outstretched appendage before looking up to the devil. There was no ill intent or any opposing motives. Of course Issei wasn't the best at picking up on those. Priscilla, however, seemed like a more refined version of the Rias, and she looked honest in her words. But why go so far just for him if she didn't have any ulterior motives? There had to be something else if she was being so nice. It seemed Rias had. Why wouldn't I? Priscilla asked back, curious about her pawn's question. But you told me of how devils would kill for a piece like me. How they'd do anything necessary to obtain me, because of this he replied slowly, lifting his arm and activating the boosted gear. Priscilla stood there for a moment, silent. But she soon placed a hand on Isseis' shoulder, causing the boy to look up in confusion. The devil smiled reassuringly, giving a small sign of comfort to the younger devil. Issei Haidu. I'm not going to lie to you, but being the secretary is a large part of why I want you. But, I won't do anything that will put you in a tough position. I only ask that you strive to be the best and grow as an individual, so that we may come together as partners, and perhaps equals even. Priscilla stated firmly. You mean he could actually grow to a high-class devil? Issei asked, his eyes remaining the life they lost from before. Of course. And with the way you stayed on par with the annoying bird, I'm truly surprised you weren't offered middle class, since that is no easy feat for a beginner like you. Priscilla replied. Her small smile fueled Issei, contagiously appearing on the brunette's face as he gripped his fist tighter. If you really believe in me, I'll do it. Issei looked down at his gauntlet-covered hand and clenched it into a tight fist. He would get stronger and prove to Rias that he wasn't weak. He'd make sure she regretted trading him and, just maybe, see him in a different light. He'd make sure all of them knew that Issei Haidu wasn't just some one-and-done type of dude. That he still had fight in him and room to grow much stronger. No matter what, he'd make sure all the devils knew he wasn't the one to be ed with. He wasn't going to give up now, not when his odds were starting to look good. He still had a dream, and it will damn sure come true. Priscilla, in turn, smiled wider behind her fan as she was amused by her new pawn's actions. She then held out her hand once more. Well then. Do you accept becoming my pawn? Issei grinned, now fueled with a new fire. It burned with confidence and determination as he now had another chance to better himself. His light was lit, burning brighter than ever. Now was the time to capitalize on the gift he was given. Isseis stepped over to Priscilla as the magic circle appeared below his feet. It shined brightly, signaling that it was teleporting them. However, just before the duo left, Issei could see the saddened looks on everyone's face. They looked as if they were actually going to miss him, which made him frown. And then he turned to Rias to see her blank look. She didn't seem to care as she stared with no signs of emotion whatsoever. His frown only deepened as the last seconds ticked away and both Issei and Priscilla vanished with a flash of bright light. I'll be back, Rias. And I'll make sure your face is filled with shock and surprise next time you see me. Later that day. Gusan, Kachan, I promise to write and visit when I can. Issei, are you sure you want to do this? This is so abrupt. Yeah, going across seas is a big move. Isseis stood in front of his house, just outside the doorway with his parents. The brunette wasn't a heartless son, so, before he would leave from the underworld, he had to make sure he didn't up and disappear without telling them. He wasn't going to make them worry about him, and he had to make sure they were at ease before his departure. I know, but I want to see more than just Japan. Having this opportunity, can't just pass it up. He replied, still uneasy and nervous. His parents were right, it was a big move with what he was doing. Especially since it was happening so fast. But who knows what would happen to him if he stayed, so maybe a change of scenery would do him some good. He still had ties with the orc and a small connection to the student council. Staying near them both would only make him sulk worse with how close the two kings were, despite their deal of separation. So it was best to just avoid it altogether. Issei, you can't be serious. Europe is so far away and you know nothing about it. Or where you're going. The boy's mother argued. She didn't want her child to leave yet as she cherished little time with him. It felt like yesterday that he was in diapers, clinging to her no matter where she went. What happened to her baby boy? I have someone to help me out, Kachan. She'll have my back throughout this entire transition. Issei reassured, trying to calm her. She was always so overprotective of him and he appreciated that. It was a bit embarrassing at times however. You promised to call? His mother asked. Of course. Whenever I can. You have everything you need? His father asked. Yup, all set. We love you Issei. No matter where you are, if you're in trouble call us and we'll be there as soon as we can. His mother stated. His father nodded firmly, enforcing his wife's words. It put a smile on Issei's face as he stepped forward and hugged them tightly. You two are the best parents a kid can ask for. I'll see you as soon as I can, promise. He released them from his grasp before turning around. Priscilla was leaning against a black car, waiting for him with her arms folded. Ready to go? She asked with a grin behind her fan. Issei grinned back and nodded his head. Yeah. The duo then entered into the back seat of the car. Issei's parents waved him off as the car drove down the street. They never stopped until the car turned the corner and disappeared from their sight. You think he'll be okay? Issei's mother asked, still worried. He'll be fine. He's all grown up now. We can only have faith in him as his parents, his father assured. Yes, hopefully all of our cooking lessons will pay off too. And cleaning. And what to do in case of. I wouldn't worry, he's well trained, dear. He'll probably be the best damn cook on campus anyways. Had to give him something to impress the ladies. His father was confident as he grinned. If there was one way to capture a woman's heart, it was cooking. It impressed me all those years ago, the female brunette replied, backing up his thoughts. Mrs. Haidu's tone was low and sultry as a sly smirk appeared on her face. Mr. Haidu smiled in response, knowing exactly what she was hinting at as he grabbed her waist. Well then, let's relight the spark from all those years ago. If Yufu, let's. The house was then filled with screams and s of pleasure between the two parents of the young dragon. Issei looked at his home as he and his new master drove off to their location, while Priscilla looked at her new pawn and was sending a message to her queen to inform her that their newest member will be needed a tour of the mansion, lessons for their school and much more. She sighed before looking into the boy's eyes and smiled a little one. You were truly an interesting boy during your fight with the Phoenix Heir, and I believe I can make you much stronger get than before also, you can provide me with much entertainment. She takes out her fan and pointed it to the boy. Now then, we have a few hours until we reach our destination. She reached into a compartment and pulls out a bottle of champagne with 2 glasses and filled them up. She handed one to Issei and raised her own. A small town, at a park, laid a teenage boy who was laying in his own blood as he looked at the evening sky and thought what he did wrong and what could he have done to deserve a fate like this. The boy was Issei Haidu. Of the highest order, but he had a golden heart as well. Something that is supposed to be impossible. A paradox. Yet Haidu Issei did it anyway. He was one of the most dead but kind souls in existence. At the present moment, Haidu Issei was at the end of his date with Yuma Mono. It was his first date and he poured his heart and soul into it to make it a perfect date. The date was beautiful and perfect in his eyes as he took Uma Amano with him to a nice movie, lunch, even the arcade, and a special jewelry shop that he bought a special bracelet that he gave to her as a gift. So if the date was so good, how did he end up in a situation like this? Let's rewind the clock shall we? Flashback. It sure was fun today. As they walked to the fountain, she held his hand which made him warm and happy that she accepted him. For the first time, Issei thought that he had a shot at having a girlfriend, a real girlfriend. Hey, Ice-kun. What is it, Yuma-chan? She stands in front of the fountain and he was taken away by her beauty as the sunset had made her glow as if she was in a painting. He wished he could take a picture of it but didn't as he wanted to hear her request. There is something I want to do to celebrate our first date. Can you listen to my wish? Oh yeah. It's here. This is it. This must be it. Issei mentally freaked out as he checked everything for the moment. The smell of my breath. Check. Mentally prepared. Check. My heart is beating so fast. What is the wish you want? It was then that he made such a dumb mistake after coming so far. She closed her eyes and smiled as she spoke clearly to him. Could you die for me? Eh? What was that? Eh? That Isha, sorry, can you repeat that again? I think there's something wrong with my ears. Issei was sure he must have heard it wrong. That's what he thought. That must be it. So he asked her again. But the response was not what he wanted to hear again. Could you die for me? She clearly says it to me again. While laughing. Her words didn't make any sense. The moment he opened his mouth he was about to say "That's so funny, Yuma-chan," with a smile. Flap. Black wings appeared from her back. She then starts to flap her wings. The black feathers float in the air and then drop down to my feet. What is that? For sure, Yuma-chan is cute like an angel, but an angel? No, there's no way that can be true. Is it some kind of act? His beautiful girlfriend was currently flapping her wings while the sun sets behind her. It looked like a scene from a fantasy story he read in the library. It was fun. The short time I spent with you. It was like playing house with a little child. Yuma-chan's voice was so very cold. Her tone is like an adult's. Her mouth is forming a cold, cruel smile. Oh, and just to clarify something. My name isn't Yuma. My true name is Rainer, and now it's time for you to die. Rainer prepared her light spear and hurls it at Issei, who was still standing in shock. Unable to comprehend what was happening. Shink. Issei felt pain as he looked at his heart that had a red spear sticking inside of him. He fell on his back and couldn't do or say anything as the woman he loved walked towards him and grabbed a spear before ripping it out of his heart, which made him bleed more all over the ground. Rainer smiled as she then raised her spear and stabbed his heart again before summoning more spears as she started to stab the arms. Then the legs. Then his stomach. Then his groin. And finally she held a spear at his head and smiled cruelly. If you have anyone to blame, then blame God for putting the sacred gear in your soul. Issei didn't understand what she was talking about, nor did he care. He stopped caring after he felt so many emotions in his soul, but the ones he felt the strongest were rage and sadness. Rage for being used like some puppet on his strings. Angry at himself for being such a naive fool thinking there was someone who could love him. Angry for not even seeing the signs that she was a complete stranger to him. Angry for falling for her silver tongue and her honeyed words so easily. Angry for being killed by a power he had no knowledge of existing within him. And finally angry that the woman crushed his heart and didn't give a care about his feelings. And sadness. Sadness for being rejected and tossed aside like he was a piece of trash. Sad for his parents since he could see his parents crying as he knew his mother would be devastated and his father would be sad but still stay strong for his mother. Sadness for not being able to see Rin again. Sadness for not being able to live his life to the fullest and also for not being able to achieve his dream of being a harem king. I wish I could restart. The woman flew away from the bloodied body as she left feathers behind. Now in another universe, this would be the day where young Issei would be betrayed and the start of his new life as a reincarnated devil bound to his master. But this time, things had changed. The area became a black and dark room as Issei couldn't see anything nor could he feel anything. He simply was covered in darkness as he cried that he was a piece of trash that didn't deserve to live. But then a voice in his head spoke. You're wrong. You do deserve to live. Didn't you say you felt sadness for not living your life? Didn't you say you were sad because those you loved will cry if you die? You can't give up now. Live your life. Live and be with the ones you love. Another voice that sounded like a child spoke to him this time. Ice is a nice person. A funny but nice person. You call yourself trash, but that's a lie. There are those who do like you, Ice-kun. You always declared that would be a harem king, so I want to see what you can do. I want to see if you can actually do it. The voice changed to a shy but gentle tone, along with a lazy but seductive one. Love should be given, not just taken, and should never be one-sided. You have others who do love you for who you are, but haven't realized it yet. It's true you're acting like a little child, one that's scared of being alone but one that yearns for love. The voices changed to a more mature one as she spoke. You are an interesting person, and I want to know everything about you. Use my knowledge and I can help you achieve the happy ending you desire. The voice changed to a figure that appeared before him as he looked to see a woman above his wore a black dress made of shadows that seemed to wave in accordance with her heartbeat. She also had a black veil on her head that covered her face as she looked at him and put his head in her lap. Issei didn't know this woman, but his body felt relaxed as he looked at her and wasn't scared of the shadow hands that appeared from her back as she used them to wrap around his body comfortably as he began to sleep. The woman looked at him and asked, "Would you love me?" Issei was still so scarred from what Rainer did to him and was hesitant until he felt something touch his lip. He was shocked to see that the woman who was giving him a lap pillow also took his first. Issei was so shocked that he felt a bit lighter in his heart until he answered her question with one of his own. "Would you love me for me? Even though I'm not the best person to even date. I'm weak. I have no power. I'm not smart. And I have no skills. And the dream I have is really selfish. So I ask you again. Would you still love me even though I'm not perfect? The woman leaned to his ear and whispered 4 words to him that made him feel warmth in the dark cold world he was in. Yes. I love you. Issei opened his eyes as he gasped and looked around to see that he was back in his room and pondered what happened before he saw his calendar on the wall marked the beginning of my second year at Kuo. Before I met her. He felt his chest and didn't see the hole in his chest, nor did he feel any scarring of any kind. He looked at the mirror and noticed that he was in the same pajamas as last week and his hair was a bit darker as he saw his eyes were heterochromatic as he saw his left eye as his normal chocolate brown color, but the right one was purple. He was shocked to see this before he heard someone behind him. Please calm down. He gasped in fright as he looked to see a woman sitting in his bed as she looked familiar to him. Hello. Who are you? The woman looked at him before taking off her veil to reveal her face to Issei that blew him away by her beauty. She even more beautiful than any of the girls he's seen at his school and in his games. She was similar to a half-human half-elf demi-human woman with silver hair and eyes that were amethyst with a bluish tint to them. Since she was a half-elf, her ears were noticeably pointed. Issei walked to her and was still amazed and taken away by her beauty and asked, Whoa are you? The woman patted the empty spot on the bed as she gestured for him to sit down and he did so, which made her even happier. The woman hugged him as he could feel her heavenly chest on his chest as cuddled with him. I'm so happy to see you after all this time, my love. I promise that I won't let that whore hurt you again. Issei heard the dark tone in her voice until she spoke to him again. It's best you get ready for school. Issei was surprised and asked. Wait. When will I speak to you again and how am I back here? She sighed before snapping her fingers and stopped time. I can see why you have so many questions, so she'll answer them as best as she can. The woman disappeared before another appeared and she almost looked like the former woman before he saw a difference in the two. She had long white hair that reached all the way down her back and had barely exposed white porcelain-like skin. She had deep black eyes that shined with inhuman intelligence. She wore a pitch black dress which is more similar to a dress someone would wear to a funeral than casual attire, and a black butterfly hairpin was in her hair. She smiled as she looked at the boy and spoke. Like she said before, I'll try to explain the best I can. My name is Echidna, the Witch of Greed, while the one you saw before was Atella, the Witch of Envy. And as for the reason you were killed was because of the power you have inside of you. She pointed to his heart and a necklace appeared with a purple gem around his neck before she explained. You see, the sacred gear you have is one that was created by a group called the Witches of Sin. There were 7 witches that were said to have committed many atrocities and crimes until all 7 were killed and their souls were placed in a special device that allows the user to communicate and use all of our powers, but the catch was that the witches were the only ones who could decide who would wield our power. Many had used out power, but they died due to either madness, a change of fate, or overusing our authorities. Issei was alarmed by this before asking. But what does that have to do with me? I never even saw that necklace before in my life. Echidna smiled teasingly and shook her head. Not true. You did receive this necklace. It was a gift from your friend Rin. Before she moved away. Issei's eyes widened before he remembered that day and looked at the necklace. He thought he lost it the next day after it disappeared and searched for a week but couldn't find it. He looked at her and asked. So you're saying that I can use your power along with the others? Yes, but there's a catch. You must gain their trust and pass a trail for them, and if you do pass them you may use our powers, but once you pass all 7 of them, then you'll need to be given a contract by us to give you strict rules that you must follow. Issei nodded as he understood until he had one last question. Hang on. I got one last question. How am I even back here? Just the other day I almost or possibly died, and now I'm here a week before that day. How? Echidna smiled as she leaned into his personal space and replied. It's one of Satella's authorities. The one you used was returned by death. It allows the user to go back to a certain point in time but still able to keep the memories of the past loop. Issei looked at his hands and asked. So basically it's a way to cheat death. It doesn't feel right. Does that mean when I die as an old man I'll repeat it again and again? Echidna wanted to answer until she sighed. I'm afraid you'll have to ask Satella that question. But I'll keep this brief. For now you have the authorities of sloth and envy. No, we'll contact you when you think you're ready for the next trial. Also you may speak to me, but you only can speak to Satella, Sloth, and I until you meet the others. Issei nodded as Echidna left and Satella appeared in her place. The veil was gone as she looked at him and smiled. I promise, Issei. I will help you love yourself and others around you, but if you ever need comfort, then ask of me, and I shall assist you in any way I can. Know if you need someone to talk to them, come to me. Remember that I love you and I don't care about anyone else but you and your happiness. Satella moved in and hissed softly before she vanished and time resumed. Issei. Get up. It's breakfast time. Issei was happy to be in his uniform as he replied. Coming mom. He put on his school bag and went downstairs. Ready to restart his second year at Kuo Academy before Rainer comes into his life. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the Nefarious Doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.